Some big additions in the transfer portal for the SEC so far. Could there be more on the way? Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I am Chris Gordy. We will get you caught up on all the latest stuff going on through the transfer portal as the spring portal will open here, and we will get you caught up on all the latest happening. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's over at FanDuel.com. All right, we got to dive into this as Oklahoma making a big pickup in the transfer portal yesterday. Oklahoma announcing the addition of Cal transfer running back Jaydn Ott. He did not need long to decide where he was headed. It was reported Monday evening that Ott had entered his name into the NCAA transfer portal, and by Tuesday evening, it was announced he was headed to Oklahoma. Ott heads to OU after 3 seasons at Cal. Looking back to his 2023 production, we mentioned yesterday he was limited by injuries this past season, played in 10 games, but not very productive. Had just under 400 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. But his breakout season his sophomore year in 2023 had career highs with 1,300 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns, averaged 109 per game on the ground, and had a very productive freshman season as well, almost 900 rushing yards that year. So he had originally planned to continue his career at Cal. He announced his return back on December 29th of last year, and everybody just kind of expected, oh, he's going to go back. But he decided to hit the portal, and he's heading to the SEC, coming to play for Oklahoma. And look, if you're an Auburn fan, you remember him pretty well. He rushed for 78 yards and a touchdown versus Auburn 2 years ago in that 14-10 barn burner. But a big pickup there for the Oklahoma Sooners. And we talked about Oklahoma's running backfield this past offseason about, like, they're bringing back everybody that was on the team basically last year. You bring back Javonte Barnes, who will be a senior, Xavier Robinson and Taylor Tatum, who were freshmen last year, Gavin Sawchuk, who had a nice year 2 seasons ago and then kind of fell back last year. And then they had Sam Franklin as well, who we had on the show just a couple weeks ago here on Locked On SEC. Well, news came out yesterday, Sam Franklin is actually going to enter the portal as a grad transfer. Played 12 games for the Sooners last year, was an FCS All-American before heading to Oklahoma. So he'll have 1 year of eligibility remaining. So we'll certainly track that and see where Sam Franklin moves. Now, Sam Franklin is a grad transfer, so he could potentially go to another SEC school. We will see. But Jaydn Ott heading to Oklahoma and a big-time pickup there. Now, the Sooners also got a pledge from former Stanford offensive lineman Jake Maikkula, we'll say Maikkula. But he joins the Sooners with 2 years of eligibility remaining. He started 20 games over the last 2 seasons at Stanford, played at guard and center. And the Sooners get some much-needed help on the interior of that offensive line. Maikkula had entered the portal after Stanford hired their head coach, or fired head coach Troy Taylor back in March. Like I said, started 11 games at both left guard and center last year, played over 700 snaps, and he's bringing some versatility. Now, Troy Everett is projected to be the starter at center for the Sooners, but Oklahoma didn't have much experience behind him. So Maikkula has the opportunity to push Everett or the guards, Eddie, Pierre, Louis, or Nwaiwu. Struggle with the names there, the guards. You know who they are at Oklahoma. But we'll see if he can earn a starting job or just provide some depth. But you combine those guys with the addition of quarterback John Mateer, and Brent Venables is making some moves. He understands this is an all-important year for him. Year 2 in the SEC, and they took a step backward last year. Offense was not good. Defense was very good, but they have got to get better. That win total has to improve for Oklahoma. So kudos to them. Some people saying, I saw, some of the On3 and national people saying, is Oklahoma one of the winners of the offseason in the portal? You add John Mateer, quarterback from Washington State. You add Jaydn Ott, the running back from Cal. You bring in Ben Arbuckle, the OC from Washington State. Good hires and good moves on paper for Brent Venables, but he's got to go prove it. They got to go win with these guys. Got to improve that win total. So we will we'll see what if those additions help make a difference for OU in the SEC this coming year. Another audition through the transfer portal happening yesterday. How about Ole Miss adding some depth at quarterback, getting a Division II All-American named Trinidad Chamliss, a Division II quarterback at Ferris State last season. That's Ferris, Ferris State. Verbally committed to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss on Tuesday. Shared the news with On3. 6'1", 200 pounds. Led the program to a Division II national championship last year. Its third title in the last 4 seasons. Completed 61% of his passes for 2,900 yards. 26 touchdowns to 5 interceptions over 15 games. That was about 195 a game. He also rushed for 1,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, averaged 6 yards per carry. I was looking at some of his highlights yesterday, and he's a runner. He can run, but big arm as well. You just never know, though, watching Division II film. How is that going to translate to, the SEC? But Austin Simmons is expected to be the Ole Miss starter with Jackson Dart off to the NFL, but they needed some depth. And certainly Chambliss will add some depth to that Ole Miss room. You wonder, with his running ability, do they work in some packages for him? Maybe some goal line packages or something like that. But the rest of the guys on the depth chart, they had Louisville transfer Pierce Clarkson and AJ Maddox, who was a redshirt freshman. So we'll see if Chambliss plays at all for Ole Miss this year, or like we said, if it was just a depth move behind Austin Simmons. Meanwhile, over at Auburn, they will lose one of their depth pieces on the O-line. O-lineman Braden Joyner announcing he will enter the transfer portal. 6'2", 313 pounds. Was named a 2024 All-SEC freshman team member. Appeared in 10 games, started 6. Will have 3 years of eligibility remaining. One of the depth charts I looked at had him backing up Dylan Wade at left guard. So maybe one of those opportunities where it's like, thought I performed well as a freshman, thought I'd be a starter coming out of spring. I'm not the starter, so I'll go somewhere else and be a starter. So Braden Joyner, again, a hit to the depth on that O-line for Auburn. Over Kentucky, they are losing cornerback Jaquavius Marshall. He was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2024 from the state of Georgia. Did not record a stat last year. Will have 4 years of eligibility remaining. So we'll see what happens with him. One name to keep an eye on, Jake Garcia, East Carolina quarterback, entered the transfer portal. He's back in the portal for the 3rd time in his career. He started his career at Miami, played 2 seasons there, then went to Mizzou for a season, and went to ECU this past season and ended up being their starter at the start of the year, but was benched midseason due to poor play. But we'll see. Jake Garcia may be a name to keep an eye on for Tennessee. And that brings us to what is the latest on the saga of Nico Iamaleava. Well, he's in the portal and he wanted more money. Well, his chance of getting more money seems to be decreasing by the day. According to On3 Sports and several of the reports out there, he and his camp were seeking an increase in NIL package from the Vols and was set to make a little over $2 million this year. Remains to be seen where he will end up, but On3 Sports, Pete Nakos indicating a number of teams are watching this saga and multiple programs will be contenders for his commitment, but only if his NIL demands drop to around $1 million. So, man, you talk about your all-time backfires. Nico was making $2 million in Tennessee, wanted closer to $4 million. Tennessee says, we're not paying you that, hit the road. And now seems to be nobody stepping up to the plate, not even to give him $2 million. Sounds like there's several suitors out there waiting for this thing to drop to $1 million. And they're like, we'll pay you at $1 million. But according to Pete Nakos yesterday, Tulane reportedly out of the chase for Iamaleava. The Green Wave lost quarterback Darian Mensah to Duke this offseason, but sounds like they have pulled out. North Carolina reportedly pulled out. USC and Notre Dame reportedly have no interest. So that list is dwindling of who may be interested in Nico Iamaleava, but, goodness, does he have to go to like a mid-major? Hey, there were reports that maybe UCLA could still be interested. So we'll see what happens there. But, man, what an interesting storyline. We said it all week. The old mantra that players have is know your worth. Know your worth in that if you're underpaid or not making anything, go get money. But also know your worth that if you're here and you're getting paid here, like, don't go try to chase greener pastures that aren't there. Because now, somebody brought up, should he pull the George Costanza on Seinfeld and just go show up to work, go back to work at Tennessee and be like, what happened? I didn't quit. I'm still here. Just act like nothing happened, because that would be the better option at this point, considering the reported low demand right now for teams not really pounding down the door to get Nico in their camp. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we will touch on SEC Media Days. The schedule has come out for that in 2025 coming up this summer. So we'll touch on that in just a second. More Locked On SEC coming your way. Hey, but first, the NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. And right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, FanDuel makes it so easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or diving into their player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to get your favorite player props and bet on them. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Do not miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Like we said, when you join FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That is at FanDuel.com. Go check them out today. We're along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And I do want to touch a little bit on here. The SEC Media Days schedule has come out for 2025. Of course, takes place every summer, coming up mid-July. And always like to see kind of how the schedule shapes up and what coaches are speaking on what days. So, like we said, football season kickoff event held July 14th through 17th. It will be at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta this year. So this will be the third time Atlanta will host it since 2018. The event was for the longest in Birmingham, Hoover, but moving around a little bit. Was in Atlanta in 22, was in Nashville in 23, was in Dallas this past year, and now it heads back to Atlanta. And so take a look at the schedule. Here's how it's going to shape up based on who your favorite team is. You can figure out what days you want to pay attention. But on Monday, July 14th, it'll be LSU and Brian Kelly will speak. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin will also be there. South Carolina, Shane Beamer, and Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. And we look a little bit differently at Clark Lee and Vanderbilt this year. They put on their big boy pants last year. Diego Pavia back in the fold, and they're going to be a headache for somebody this year. Vanderbilt is a tough out compared to the doormat they used to be, but always feels like Brian Kelly and LSU I wonder if they request that Monday. It always feels like they come in that first day and get out. But LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt on that first day. Tuesday, July 15th, will be Auburn and Hugh Freeze, Georgia and Kirby Smart, Tennessee and Josh Heupel, and Texas and Steve Sarkisian. So that is day 2 of SEC Media Days. Day 3 always seems like that's the Alabama day, but of course, Nick Saban long gone. It is Kalen DeBoer in Alabama, Florida and Billy Napier, Mississippi State Jeff Lebby, and Oklahoma Brent Venables. So that is your slate for Wednesday, July 16th, the Media Days. And then closing it out, the getaway day, a day where it's like all the media just start packing up their things, can't get out of there quick enough. Thursday, July 17th, will be Arkansas Sam Pittman, Kentucky Mark Stoops, Mizzou Eli Drinkwitz, and A&M Mike Elko. So that is your SEC Media Day. Slate 4 coaches each day, all 4 days out there in Atlanta. Will be a lot of fun. Of course, we'll have you full coverage like we always do here on Locked On SEC, getting you caught up with all the latest news and headlines. And, of course, catches some great interviews with players from most of the schools. We used to, when we first started going a decade ago, our goal was always to get one player from every school. And we achieved that for a couple of years. And then some of the media departments kind of, they pull the, oh, we don't have time for Radio Row. We can't come down there and all that kind of stuff. So we've missed the last couple of years, we missed a couple players from a couple schools, but we try to do our best to get the most. I think Kentucky and LSU are usually the most accommodating for us. We were able to get a lot of their players. Texas was very accommodating. Ole Miss and Arkansas usually always get us a player from there. Tennessee as well. Florida's usually really good. Mississippi State. So again, I'm just kind of running through my mind. South Carolina is always tremendous. They do a great job. I think Vanderbilt actually didn't come or they didn't bring many of their players last year. I think Oklahoma did a couple quick ones. A&M didn't. A&M's kind of been synonymous or known for not really coming through Radio Row. So anyway, just letting you guys know what to expect with SEC Media Days coming up right around the corner. And that's always like the unofficial start of the college football season, right? It's like mid-July, and you're a month away from camp fully getting fully underway and really into the thick of this thing. So again, 16 schools over 4 days, 4 schools a day, and the SEC Network, of course, will have coverage all 4 days from Atlanta, and we'll have all 4 days coverage from Atlanta here on Locked On SEC. So, all right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we will get into some SEC basketball news, some transfer portal, and other stuff happening. That's coming your way in just a sec. All right, let's dive back into it, guys. We got SEC basketball news as we got some portal happenings and whatnot. So let's dive into it as Arkansas landing former Alabama, South Carolina big man Nick Pringle. He is staying put in the SEC. Former Alabama and South Carolina big man finding a home with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Pringle, if you recall, started his career at Wofford back in 2020, transferred to Alabama. Spent 2 seasons there, joined the Gamecocks this past year. And look, South Carolina struggled, but it was the best season of Pringle's career. Started 32 games, averaged 9.5 points and 6 rebounds per game. His time in Tuscaloosa, ups and downs. It's just a bench piece for them, but playing time and production increased this past year. And so nice addition there for Calipari and the Hogs. And then another one, the latest addition for the Razorbacks, coming from Florida State, forward Malik Ewan. He had his bottom 5 or his final 5 down to Arkansas, Kansas, Auburn, Virginia, and Mississippi State. And he said the style of play won him over at Arkansas. He's 6'11", 230 pounds. He had stops at Ole Miss, South Plains Community College, and then Florida State. They had a rough season this past year, but he was very good. He averaged 14 points and 7 rebounds a game. He had 9 double-doubles, shot 59%. And like we said, second big transfer of the day for Arkansas. And Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle. So big pickups there for John Calipari, who always seems to be very good in adding pieces through the portal. How about over at Auburn? They landed an SEC transfer, former Mississippi State star Keyshawn Murphy. Big-time pickup, homecoming of sorts for the 6'10" star. Played for Birmingham's Ramsey High School. Was the number 3 player out of the state of Alabama in the 2021 class. And he's coming to Auburn to play for Bruce Pearl after a breakout junior season in Starkville. Bruce Pearl confirmed the addition on social media, tweeted out, boom! Now, look, there was some controversy there because Kentucky fans were all in the mentions on Twitter saying, that's our thing. That's what our coach does. That's what Mark Pope tweets. Well, then I saw a lot of Auburn fans going back years past saying, no, this is what Bruce Pearl tweets when he gets a recruit or a transfer. So regardless, whoever owns Boom on Twitter, everybody can use Boom. But Auburn looking to reload that roster that got to the Final Four. And Murphy is lined up to be a big piece after a breakout season last year. like we said, appeared in 34 games, was Mississippi State's second leading scorer, 11.5 points per game. Also led the team with 7 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.1 steals, shot 56% from the floor. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a 4-star transfer prospect and the number 36 overall player available. So big pickup there for Auburn. All right, some other SEC hoops portal news. How about, or just news in general? Kentucky guard Otega Owe made his announcement on his basketball future. He will test the NBA draft waters, so he's declared for the draft, but he will leave the door open for a potential return to Kentucky. He's posted on social media, getting to play the game I love each day, knowing I have your support alongside my family and friends. Truly been a dream come true. Taking the next step, have declared for the NBA draft while maintaining my NCAA eligibility. Of course, Owe came to the Wildcats as a transfer from Oklahoma, played 2 seasons there. Beat Oklahoma twice with game-winning shots this year. But the 6'4", 215-pound guard, standout junior season, posted double figures in each of the team's first 26 games. He was a second-team All-SEC selection, set a career-high best in points, rebounds, assists, steals. He had a fantastic year. So we will see what happens with Otega Owe. But if he doesn't end up getting, the draft grades that he wants, like we said, maintain that eligibility, and he could come back, would be a monster piece for Mark Pope to get back at Kentucky next season. All right, how about Chris Beard doing a little work over at Ole Miss? They made it a twofer on Tuesday with a couple of commitments. Corin Johnson and AJ Storr. Corin Johnson comes to Ole Miss from Louisville. He had a shoulder injury that sidelined him for all but 2 games last year. Was playing at Washington prior to that, so he will hope to finally be healthy and look really good. He was Pac-12 6th man of the year back in 2023-2024, where he averaged 11 points, 2.5 assists, 2 rebounds per game that year, and a very successful career there at Washington. Like I said, didn't go as planned last year at Louisville. And then Ole Miss also picking up a commitment from Kansas transfer AJ Storr. Very well traveled. He began his career at St. John's in 22, transferred to Wisconsin, finished his junior season last year at Kansas, and now he will be going to Ole Miss. So Ole Miss will be his 8th stop if you go back to his high school days. The guy's he's moved all over the place. But for his career, he's a 42% shooter from the field, shoots 33% from 3. So we'll see what Chris Beard's getting in both those guys. But Corin Johnson and AJ Storr heading to Oxford to play for Chris Beard. And last basketball note here, Todd Golden filling a couple of staff openings on his staff after some departures. Jonathan, is it Safir, S-A-F-I-R, has been promoted to assistant coach after previously serving as director of basketball strategy and analytics. Golden told reporters he planned to promote him after assistant coach John Andrzejek was announced as the new head coach at Campbell. And then less than 1 week later, Kevin Hovde accepted the Columbia head coaching job. Golden indicated he would look to fill the second opening with an external hire and was reportedly done so, hiring NYU coach Dave Klatsky for that role. So, again, reigning national champs, reloading on that staff. We'll see what they look like next year, getting ready for the 2024 season. That is just about going to do it. I was trying to keep an eye on the portal here before we wrapped up. Some other names to keep an eye on going into the portal. North Carolina corner Zion Ferguson has entered the portal. Former Under Armour All-American who will have 4 years of eligibility remaining. Also North Carolina edge Bo Atkinson entering the portal. He's 6'6", 260 pounds, at 54 tackles, 11 sacks. Earned ACC Lineman of the Week honors a couple of times. He'll have 2 years of eligibility remaining. So those are just kind of some of the names. Florida State wide receiver Jordan Scott has entered the portal. He was the number 2 JUCO wide receiver in the 2025 class. Illinois running back Josh McCray entered the portal. He was named the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl MVP last season. So there you have it. Those are just some names to keep an eye on that could end up perhaps at some SEC schools with a lot of moving and shaking. But yeah, look, I talked to somebody last week who said they thought this spring portal would be a little bit more active than last year's spring portal. Remember, we heard all these rumblings that, then when that portal reopens, it's going to be there's going to be some monster names moving around. And we didn't really see that last spring. Like most guys just kind of stayed put. And, I think there were a few grad transfers that moved, but for the most part, it wasn't the big rush to the portal last spring like we saw. This spring portal seems to be a little bit more active. And, like I said, some of the biggest ones so far, Jaydn Ott was a pretty big one, transferring to OU and going to help try to improve that OU running game for the Sooners, because it felt like, look, offense was just a problem overall for Oklahoma last year. Jackson Arnold struggled. They had all the injuries at wide receiver. That didn't help. But let me see where did OU rank in just the SEC in rushing last year. I'll pull this up real quick. Yeah, they were near the bottom. They were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from the bottom. So I guess not the worst. But you got to also consider you're factoring in there the rushing yards from Jackson Arnold and Hawkins. So that kind of skews it a little bit. But it just felt like they didn't run the football very well as a team last year at Oklahoma. So, yeah, Jaydn Ott, if he's fully back healthy and looking more like his old self, that's a big-time get. It's a big-time get for Oklahoma. And like I said, the one that we're all keeping an eye on is John Mateer. How much does he elevate that passing game for OU this year? And, we talked about Giovanni Gibson getting hurt already. It's not a great sign. But, again, if anybody knows how to deal with injuries to wide receivers, it's Oklahoma. All right, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your second listen, you can go check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Everybody have a great day. We'll be back talking all things SEC tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.